I stepped into the wedding late, heart pounding, and the first face I saw was his, the man who broke me. My chest tightened, my pulse loud in my ears. So I walked past him, straight toward a stranger at the bar, and asked for something I'd never asked anyone before. Will you dance with me? I hadn't planned on a suit, not for a Saturday. The jacket still carried the faint scent of cedar from a closet I rarely opened, and the tie remembered tighter days. I was a stand-in guest. My friend caught the flu, texted me a pleading string of apologies and emojis, and I said yes, because saying no felt heavier than a drive to a vineyard on the edge of town. I told myself I'd stay an hour, clap at the toasts, and slip out before the dance floor turned into a whirlpool of inside jokes I wasn't a part of. The place was beautiful in that careless way expensive things are. Rows of vines disappeared into blue dusk. Lanterns floated over the deck like small moons. A trio in the corner coaxed Sinatra out of the air. I posted up near the bar and nursed club soda, condensation cold against my knuckles. My phone stayed lit with messages from Lily, photos of a lopsided drawing, a question about whether owls sleep sitting up, a reminder that the book fair was next week. I answered everything. I always do. 5 years out from losing my wife, and I'd learned the art of being present and elsewhere at the same time. You can stand in a room like this, nod at laughter, know where the exits are. People brushed past carrying slices of cake, stories half told and half true, and I let them. I was good at the sidelines. They can be gentle if you let them. Time loosened. The jazz blurred one song into another. I watched couples drift to the dance floor. Someone in silver heels counting under her breath, someone else resting his cheek on a shoulder as if it were home. I felt the familiar tug of leaving early and almost surrendered to it. Then the air shifted. She arrived like a comma in a long sentence. Small pause. New meaning. Burgundy dress, clean lines, the kind of simple that knows exactly what it's doing. Her heels clicked once, twice, then softened as she reached the edge of the lantern light. She didn't scan the room for attention. She searched it for distance. The way her gaze moved, door, band, bar, back to the door, told me more than any introduction could. Later I'd learn words for it, but in that moment I just knew. Someone had taught her to measure rooms. I looked away and pretended to be fascinated by the lemon wedge on my glass. It's a trick you learn as a teacher, how not to stare, how to give people privacy even when there isn't any. Still, I felt the gravity of her presence, the slight disruption it made in the evening's polite weather. Snatches of talk drifted near me. Cousin, traffic, made it just in time, and then a taller figure in a navy suit appeared at the periphery of her orbit. Shoulders squared like a habit. She didn't move toward him. She went very still, the kind of still that passes for grace if you aren't looking closely. The jazz kept playing. Somewhere, Silver Heels kept counting. I checked my phone again. Lily had sent a final message. Good night, Dad. Owls do sleep sitting up. Love you. I typed back a heart and a promise to call in the morning. When I looked up, the woman in burgundy had shifted closer to the dance floor, close enough that lantern light found the careful curl of her hair and the tension she hid in her jaw. She turned her head then, not a sweep, just a quiet decision, and her eyes landed on me. It wasn't a movie moment, no thunderclap, no cue. More like recognition of a chair no one else had noticed, a place to sit for 1 minute without explaining. I didn't lift my glass or smile. I just held her gaze the way you hold a door, open, steady, asking nothing. Some nights begin loudly. This one began with a breath. She crossed the space between us before I had the sense to move. The tall man in the navy suit. His eyes followed, his jaw clamped tight. But she was already threading through the laughter and lantern glow, heels striking the wood in a rhythm that belonged to her alone. By the time she reached me, her breath carried a hint of urgency, the kind you don't fake. Hi, she said quickly, almost as if rehearsed, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. I know this is strange, but would you dance with me? Just for a moment. Before he notices. I blinked. Wait, what? Her hand was already in mine, cool fingers wrapping around as though she had decided the question was rhetorical. She leaned closer. You're not with anyone, right? I just need 2 minutes. Please. There are 100 choices you can make at a wedding. Whether to sit near the exit, whether to stay for cake, whether to clap in rhythm during speeches. Slow dancing with a stranger because she asked for rescue was not on my list. but her eyes carried the kind of plea that doesn't wait for analysis. I nodded. The band slipped into a Sinatra ballad, soft as silk. She guided us onto the floor, and suddenly the room changed shape. Her hand rested against my shoulder, her other clutched mine like it anchored her. She kept her gaze fixed above my head, past the lanterns, somewhere safe. "You okay?" I murmured. "Yeah," she whispered. Then after a beat that cracked, "No, not really." I followed her line of sight and saw him. The man in navy, standing rigid at the edge of the dance floor, arms crossed, lips pressed thin. He watched us with the expression of someone who believed the world still owed him an audience. She leaned in, words just for me. "He's my ex. We ended it 6 months ago. He cheated, brought someone else tonight, but still looks at me like I'm trespassing in my own family." I tightened my grip on her hand, subtle but enough. "Classic wedding move," I said softly. A brittle laugh escaped her, almost a cough of relief. I didn't come to cause drama, but I didn't want him to think I showed up to cry, either. So, she glanced at me for the first time, faint smile tugging. I grabbed the least threatening man in the room. That should have stung. Instead, it landed like a compliment I didn't know I needed. "Safe," she added after a pause, voice gentler now. "You look safe. Kind." Something in my chest shifted at that. It had been years since anyone had called me either. The song stretched, lingered, couples swayed like tall grass in a warm breeze. She let out a breath that seemed to lighten her frame. For the first time since she walked over, her shoulders lowered from their guard. "So," she said, voice steadier, "what's your story?" I gave her the short version. Widowed, single dad, high school teacher, expert at bedtime stories, amateur listener. Her eyebrows lifted, the first flicker of genuine curiosity. "That's rare," she murmured. I smiled faintly. "My daughter Lily would adore you. She calls bravery anything you do without realizing you're being brave. You remind me of that." The words startled even me. They startled her more. She blinked rapidly, then looked away as though catching something fragile. "Thank you," she whispered, almost inaudible beneath the music. The man in navy eventually turned and disappeared into the crowd. But we stayed, two strangers in a borrowed dance, holding on to a moment neither of us expected, a lifeline disguised as a waltz. When the song ended, we didn't let go right away. The next song bled seamlessly into another, different tempo, same soft jazz. I expected her to slip away now that her ex was gone, to retreat into that careful solitude she wore like armor. But she didn't. She stayed in front of me, fingers still looped through mine, eyes lowered as though the floorboards held secrets. So we kept moving. Not gracefully, not like the couples who twirled with practiced ease, but simply, her hand warm in mine, my other palm steady against her back. It felt less like a dance and more like keeping someone from drifting into a current. Between verses, she asked small questions, the kind that fills silence without demanding much. Favorite books, places I'd like to see. I told her about Lily's dinosaur obsession, how our living room shelves carried as many fossil guides as picture books. She laughed softly, the sound careful at first, then freer. In return, she admitted to burning garlic bread every time she cooked, no matter how closely she watched it. That small confession, ordinary, human, did more to close the distance than any dramatic story could have. I learned her name, Clara. It suited her, elegant but plain-spoken. She loved old movies, said she sometimes watched them just for the black and white shadows. When she spoke of family, there was affection, but also the hesitation of someone who had weathered questions she didn't want to answer. I didn't press. It felt enough that she was telling me anything at all. We must have swayed through 3, maybe 4 songs before I noticed how much the night had advanced. The lanterns glowed brighter against deepening dark. The crowd had thinned to clusters of laughter at the bar, and a few lingering dancers unwilling to let the evening end. Somewhere behind us glasses clinked in a final toast. Clara's gaze drifted toward the parking lot, where headlights occasionally swept across gravel. "I should go," she said at last, the words more reluctant than resolved. I nodded. "Yeah, probably time for me too." We stepped off the floor, moving slower than necessary, as if delay could stretch the moment. I offered to walk her out, and she didn't refuse. The night air was cool, touched with the faint sweetness of vines. Shoes crunched lightly on gravel as we reached her car, a small hatchback dusted from the country road. She paused by the door, turned to me. Lantern light from the venue caught her profile. Elegant dress, hair falling loose, eyes soft now that the storm had passed. I didn't expect this tonight, she admitted quietly. Me neither, I said, and I meant it in more ways than I could count. She hesitated. Then she leaned forward, brushed her lips against my cheek. Quick, almost shy, but carrying weight far beyond its seconds. When she drew back, there was the faintest spark in her eyes, the same spark I had glimpsed when she first pulled me onto the dance floor. Thank you, Daniel, for seeing me. Before I could answer, she slipped into the driver's seat, started the engine, and drove into the dark. I stood there longer than I should have, the echo of her words circling. For seeing me. It had been a long time since anyone had wanted that from me, or offered it in return. No phone number, no last name exchanged, just the strange certainty that the story wasn't finished. I walked back to my car feeling both lighter and heavier, carrying a goodbye that didn't feel like goodbye at all. 3 weeks passed. Life didn't pause. It rarely does when you're raising an 8-year-old. Mornings were a scramble of cereal boxes, mismatched socks, and Lily insisting that brushing her hair was a violation of human rights. Afternoons blurred into grading essays, correcting grammar no one wanted corrected, and ferrying her to piano practice. I told myself the wedding night was just a fragment, a kindness exchanged between strangers that belonged to memory. And yet, whenever I stirred pasta or folded laundry, Clara's words surfaced. Thank you for seeing me. The thought lingered like a melody you don't remember learning. I considered calling my friend, the one whose invite I had filled, to ask about Clara. But the idea felt intrusive, like chasing something meant to stay delicate. So I held it, quietly, and let days stack into weeks. It was Lily, of course, who shifted everything. Our school's annual family reading night had arrived, and she insisted on attending dressed as her future author self. This meant a plaid skirt, a serious cardigan 2 sizes too big, and bright red plastic glasses with no lenses. She looked like a miniature librarian ready to hand out overdue notices. We set up the cafeteria with folding chairs and stacks of picture books. I was arranging a display of Danny and the dinosaur when Lily tugged on my sleeve and whispered, "Dad, that lady's dress looks like a raspberry." I followed her gaze. There she was, Clara. No burgundy gown this time, no lanterns, no anxious crowd. Just a simple dress the shade of raspberries, and the same eyes that once searched for escape, now wide with recognition. She froze as though she wasn't sure if I was real or just a memory given shape. "Clara," I said, the name tasting strange yet familiar. She smiled slowly. "Daniel." Lily blinked between us. "You know her?" Clara crouched, her dress folding neatly as she looked Lily in the eye. "You must be Lily," she said warmly. "I heard you like dinosaurs." Lily's face lit up like someone had switched on a lamp inside her. "Do you like dinosaurs?" "Because I can tell you the difference between a Triceratops and a Protoceratops." Clara laughed, not politely but genuinely. "I mean, who doesn't like dinosaurs?" And just like that, they were friends. As Lily sketched yet another dinosaur at the art table, Clara and I talked. She explained she had just transferred to our district to work in mental health outreach. Tonight was her first official event. I told her how Lily had once tried to convince me that dinosaurs would return if we wished hard enough. She teased that maybe they already had, judging by Lily's enthusiasm. We must have spoken for nearly an hour. Around us, families drifted in and out, but it felt like the world had tilted its focus to this one improbable reunion. When the night ended, Clara leaned in as parents folded chairs and children clutched borrowed books. "I wasn't sure I'd ever see you again," she admitted, voice low enough for only me. I smiled, steady this time. I was hoping I would. And in that moment, between a cafeteria's fluorescent lights and the smell of crayons and coffee urns, it no longer felt like a memory preserved. It felt like something beginning. After that reading night, Clara seemed to thread herself into our days in small, almost accidental ways. At first it was hallway smiles during school hours, the kind that lingered just a beat longer than casual. Then came brief conversations at drop-off, her balancing a clipboard while I balanced Lily's backpack and my morning coffee. Soon it was coffee itself, shared on teacher work days when the halls were quiet, laughter echoing louder than the custodian's vacuums. It didn't feel forced. It felt like something unfolding in its own time, like watching spring coax leaves onto branches. Lily adored her instantly. Children don't pretend about that sort of thing. One Friday evening, after Lily's school play, where she played a very enthusiastic tree, Clara found us in the parking lot holding a paper bag. Post-performance reward, she said with a grin, shaking the bag so the scent of chocolate cookies escaped. Lily gasped, ripped the bag open, and with her mouth already full declared, "Dad, can we keep her?" Clara laughed so hard she had to wipe her eyes. I laughed too, though my chest ached in the best way. We didn't answer Lily's question directly, but somehow it felt like we already had. From then on, Clara was part of things. She came over some evenings, helping Lily with art projects or reading bedtime stories with me. Other nights, when the house had gone quiet, we sat on the porch steps, mugs of tea warming our hands while the chill crept in. One of those nights, Clara pulled her knees up and rested her chin on them, her voice barely above the rustle of leaves. "You know," she began, hesitant, "at that wedding, I didn't just grab your hand because of him." I turned, listening. She exhaled, words catching. "I grabbed it because you looked like you understood what it's like to be alone in a room full of people." For a long moment, I didn't speak. I just studied her profile in the porch light, the quiet curve of her mouth, the shadowed tiredness under her eyes. She wasn't someone looking for drama or rescue anymore. She was someone confessing a truth that cost her to say. "You didn't pretend with me," I said softly. "You were just real." Her hand moved slowly toward mine, deliberate this time. No urgency, no audience. Just warmth. The porch was silent except for the distant hum of a passing car. Yet the silence didn't feel empty. It felt full, like a space finally being inhabited after years of vacancy. Clara wasn't just passing through our lives anymore. She was beginning to take up a place inside them, a place we hadn't realized was waiting. Winter softened into spring, and with it, the boundaries between our lives blurred. Clara was no longer a guest in our world. She was part of its furniture, the laughter at dinner, the second pair of eyes on Lily's homework, the voice reminding me to buy more milk when I forgot. The house began to carry her traces. A scarf left draped over the couch, a book face down on the nightstand, a mug in the sink beside mine. They were ordinary things, but they hummed with significance. One Saturday evening, I was stirring pasta sauce in the kitchen, the faint hiss of garlic and tomato filling the air. Music played from the small speaker on the counter. Sinatra, again, the same voice that had wrapped around us at that wedding. Lily was in the living room painting, humming her own made-up tune, little splatters of color already dotting her fingers. Clara padded in barefoot, wearing one of my old college hoodies that dwarfed her frame. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, eyes following me with a softness that caught me off guard. "Remember this song?" she asked, voice low. I set down the spoon and listened. Sinatra crooned about the moon, about dancing and strangers. I smiled. Hard to forget. She stepped closer, tilting her head. "Dance with me," she whispered. There were dishes in the sink, sauce still simmering, Lily just a room away. But none of it mattered. I wiped my hands quickly on a towel, reached for her, and let her draw me into the center of the kitchen. The tile was cool under our feet, the refrigerator a silent witness. My arms circled her waist, hers wrapped around my neck. We moved slowly, unhurried, letting the music carry us. It wasn't polished. There were no watching eyes, no reason to pretend grace. It was honest, a rhythm built out of two people deciding not to let go. Clara rested her head against my shoulder. Her hair smelled faintly of tea and spring rain. "This feels different," she murmured. "Because no one's watching," I said. She pulled back just enough to look at me. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but with something steadier, calmer. "Because it's real." We swayed until the song ended, then stayed still, holding on, listening to the quiet pulse of the house. In that kitchen, between stove and counter, I realized something had shifted. The dance at the wedding had been a rescue. This dance was a choice. And maybe that was what mattered most. Not the grand gestures, not the carefully staged moments, but this, choosing each other in the middle of an ordinary night when no one else would ever know. The months unfolded gently, almost without my noticing. By the time Lily started third grade, Clara was woven into our routines as naturally as sunlight through the kitchen blinds. She had helped Lily pick out her first pair of glasses, bright red frames that matched her pretend author ones. Weekends were filled with blanket forts, pancake mornings, and story times where Lily demanded Clara do all the voices. My daughter, who had once clung to me like the last branch in a storm, now leaned just as easily into Clara's arms. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rushed. It was simply life, moving forward in a way I hadn't dared imagine years ago. One rainy afternoon, after school, I reached into my jacket pocket to find a crumpled piece of notebook paper. The handwriting gave it away instantly. Large loops, uneven lines, letters that leaned like tired trees. Across the top, in Lily's unmistakable scrawl, it read, "Dear Dad, I like how you laugh more now. I like that Clara makes pancakes with chocolate chips even when it's not Saturday. I like that she calls me her favorite dinosaur expert. I think Mom would be happy you're not sad anymore. Love, Lily." I read it once, then again, then a third time, as though the words might rearrange into something less devastatingly pure. But they didn't. They stayed exactly as they were, a child's truth, offered without caution. My chest ached, not with grief, but with something that felt like release. For years, I'd carried the quiet fear that Lily noticed my loneliness more than I wanted her to. Now here it was, spelled out in pencil and doodled hearts. She had seen the change, and she was grateful. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, I showed Clara the note. She unfolded it carefully, her fingers trembling just enough to betray how much it meant. Her eyes traced each crooked line. When she looked up, her lashes were wet. "She's incredible," Clara whispered, voice breaking. "She is," I said. My throat was thick, but I forced the words through. "And so are you." Clara pressed the note to her chest like it was fragile glass. Then she reached for me, her embrace quiet but absolute. No music played, no lanterns swung overhead, just the rain tapping softly against the window and two people holding onto the proof that love had found its way into a house once emptied by loss. That night, long after Clara had gone home and the house was still, I checked on Lily. She slept sprawled across her bed, glasses tilted on her nightstand, a small smile tugging at her lips. I sat beside her for a moment, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. She was right. Mom would be happy, and for the first time, I let myself believe it without guilt. A few weeks later, another invitation found its way onto our calendar, another wedding. Only this time, I wasn't a stand-in guest. We walked in together, Clara at my side, Lily skipping between us, already plotting how much cake she could get away with. There were no nerves, no quiet prayers to remain unseen. We belonged, the three of us, and it showed in the way people looked at us, curious at first, then smiling when they saw the easy comfort in our steps. The reception hall glowed with strings of lights, laughter already spilling into corners. We joined the dancing, not to escape or to prove anything, but because it felt natural. When Clara caught the bouquet, this time on purpose, Lily's laughter rang louder than the band, so loud she spilled juice all over my shirt. I didn't care. That sound was worth any stain. Later, under the moonlight outside, Clara nudged me playfully. "You know what I love about weddings now?" I raised a brow. "What's that?" "They remind me that second chances don't arrive in perfect packages. Sometimes they start with awkward dances and borrowed smiles." I looked at her then, not the woman scanning for an exit, not the guest clutching a stranger's hand for safety, but the woman who now stood rooted beside me, calm and sure. "Maybe that's what makes them real," I said. When we got home, Lily was asleep in the back seat, her bouquet of crumpled flowers clutched tight. We carried her inside and settled once more on the porch, mugs of tea forgotten in our hands. Clara leaned into my shoulder, her voice quiet as the night. "You saved me that night." I smiled, shaking my head. "You saved me too. Just took me a little longer to realize it." Her eyes met mine, no longer searching for escape, but resting, peaceful, steady. I held her gaze, remembering how it all began with a plea whispered under lantern light. "Let's keep dancing," I said softly. She nodded, "Even when there's no music." And so we sat there, two people who had once been strangers in a crowded room, now bound by something far stronger than circumstance. It wasn't a grand gesture that built this life, no sweeping declarations or perfect timing. It was a moment of kindness, a hand extended not for romance, but rescue. One step into someone else's storm. One dance that began in fear and grew into love. And now, a promise, quiet, unshakable, to keep moving together, even when the music fades. That, I realized, is how love truly begins. With kindness, with courage, with the choice to keep dancing.